Hi, this is Jerry. Today let's discuss one big news from President Trump. Trump signs Executive Order to expedite marijuana reclassification, a game changer for medical research. On December 18, 2025, former President Donald Trump took a historic step by signing an executive order aimed at expediting the reclassification of marijuana under federal law. This executive order, while not signaling full legalization of marijuana, marks a significant shift in federal policy, as it aims to lower marijuana's status from a Schedule I controlled substance, a category reserved for drugs with high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use, to a less restrictive classification. The primary goal of this move is to increase research into marijuana's medicinal uses, particularly in areas such as chronic pain, epilepsy, and mental health conditions. This executive order arrives at a time when public opinion, state-level legalization, and emerging medical evidence have increasingly challenged the notion that marijuana should remain under such strict federal prohibition. While this development does not mean marijuana will be fully legalized for recreational use at the federal level, it holds substantial implications for scientific progress and public health. So let's recall the background of history of marijuana. Background: marijuana's federal classification. Marijuana has been classified as a Schedule I substance under the Controlled Substances Act, CSA, of 1970, alongside drugs like heroin and LSD. As a Schedule I drug, marijuana was considered to have a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use. This classification significantly hindered the ability of researchers to conduct comprehensive studies on marijuana's therapeutic benefits, despite growing evidence and public support for its medical potential. Over the last few decades, marijuana's use as both a recreational and medical product has expanded in several U.S. states, even as it remains illegal at the federal level for most purposes. States like California, Colorado, and Oregon have led the way in legalizing marijuana for both medical and recreational use. However, under federal law, marijuana continued to face significant legal restrictions that complicated research periods, healthcare malpractices, and industry development. By 2025, public opinion had shifted dramatically. According to a 2023 Gallup poll, 68% of Americans favored the legalization of marijuana, with increasing support for its medical applications. With such high levels of public approval, calls for reforming federal marijuana policies had grown louder. The new executive order from Trump responds to these pressures and sets the stage for further changes in U.S. drug policy. Why Trump signed the executive order? There are several reasons why President Trump decided to sign this executive order. Firstly, growing public support and political pressure. Public opinion in favor of marijuana legalization has been steadily rising for decades. As a politician, Trump may have recognized that public sentiment has shifted and that delaying action on marijuana could alienate a significant portion of the electorate. By signing the order, Trump appears to be aligning himself with the broad public demand for increased access to marijuana for medical purposes, without fully committing to recreational legalization, a politically divisive issue. Additionally, several members of Congress, particularly those representing states where marijuana is already legal, had pushed for reform. Trump's executive order may have been a response to this mounting political pressure to reconsider the federal government's approach to marijuana. Secondly, the medical community's push for more research. One of the key motivations behind the executive order is the growing body of evidence suggesting that marijuana holds significant promise for treating a variety of medical conditions. Research has shown that marijuana-based treatments, particularly those derived from cannabidiol, CBD, could have therapeutic benefits for conditions like chronic pain, anxiety, epilepsy, and PTSD. However, the federal prohibition on marijuana has made it exceedingly difficult for researchers to conduct studies. By easing restrictions on marijuana's classification, the executive order would make it easier for scientists and healthcare professionals to conduct clinical trials and explore marijuana's full range of medicinal applications. This would be an important step in advancing public health, as doctors would have access to more reliable, evidence-based information when prescribing marijuana-based treatments. Thirdly, economic factors. The economic landscape surrounding marijuana has evolved significantly. Legal marijuana is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, generating substantial tax revenue in states where it has been legalized. The medical marijuana sector in particular continues to grow, with companies developing a wide range of marijuana-based treatments and products. Trump's executive order may also be seen as an attempt to support this burgeoning industry, which could have positive economic ramifications, particularly in states that have embraced legalization. Moreover, the economic impact of the war on drugs has been a topic of discussion. Legalization advocates argue that the reclassification of marijuana could help reduce the mass incarceration of individuals for non-violent drug offenses, a policy that disproportionately affects minority communities. By advancing the reclassification process, Trump could be signaling a willingness to address these issues, which have been increasingly scrutinized in recent years. What does the executive order do? The executive order itself does not fully legalize marijuana or remove all federal restrictions on its use. Rather, it directs the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, to expedite the process of reclassifying marijuana to a lower schedule, likely Schedule 2 or 3. This would allow researchers greater access to marijuana for clinical trials and make it easier for medical marijuana products to be approved by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. The order also calls for the National Institute on Drug Abuse, NIDA, to collaborate with research institutions to study marijuana's potential medical benefits more extensively. Specifically, the order could facilitate the development of new marijuana-based treatments for conditions such as epilepsy, chronic pain, and mental health disorders, potentially leading to FDA-approved medical marijuana products. Importantly, the executive order does not signal full legalization of marijuana for recreational use, which would still require congressional approval. The focus remains on advancing scientific research and improving public health outcomes through evidence-based medicine. So, what's the impacts and potential challenges for this move? Firstly, increased research opportunities. The most immediate impact of the executive order will be the acceleration of research into marijuana's medical uses. With marijuana's Schedule I status serving as a major barrier to scientific study, reclassification would streamline access to the substance, leading to more comprehensive and rigorous clinical trials. Researchers would be able to study marijuana's effects on a variety of medical conditions, potentially unlocking new treatment options for patients suffering from conditions where conventional treatments have proven ineffective. Secondly, a step toward broader legalization. While the executive order does not fully legalize marijuana, it could pave the way for broader reforms. If the medical benefits of marijuana are better understood and more FDA-approved treatments are developed, public pressure to legalize marijuana for recreational use could grow. Furthermore, the reclassification of marijuana could set a precedent for other reforms in U.S. drug policy. Thirdly, legal and regulatory challenges. Despite the executive order's potential to change the research landscape, marijuana remains illegal under federal law for recreational purposes. This creates a complex legal environment where state and federal policies are at odds. The order may also face resistance from conservative lawmakers or those concerned about the potential risks of increased marijuana use. These legal hurdles and political divisions could slow the pace of reform even after the executive order's implementation. Conclusion: Trump's decision to sign an executive order expediting the reclassification of marijuana represents a significant step toward modernizing federal drug policy. While the order does not legalize marijuana for recreational use, it provides a pathway for more in-depth medical research and could lead to the development of new treatments for patients in need. As public opinion continues to evolve, this executive order may be the first in a series of reforms that could reshape U.S. drug policy in the coming years, potentially leading to a more rational and evidence-based approach to marijuana regulation.